time. It's time to introduce our speaker for tonight. Usually I don't do this, but I thought it would be a great idea because we will be talking about FuckUp Nights. This is a very special event for me because usually, first off, we don't pay our speakers. We pay them with a big rock star applause. But there's one thing that makes this event special is that at Startup Grind, we make friends, not connections. But this is the first time I interviewed somebody who was a friend before I met him at before I met him. So, I make a lot of friends through Startup Grind, but Carlos was a friend before. So please give it up. Standing ovation for our speaker tonight, Carlos. You know the first question, Carlos, because I failed to mention this, but he stayed in our team for the first 5 years of Startup Grind, so eternally grateful. But have you ever been welcomed on stage as a rock star?
Yes, more or less every week. No, it's the very first time, this one. I'm humbled to be here and grateful.
It's very funny because it will be like we're not used to speaking in English, so it will be fun. But I wanted to give this sort of introduction of the voyage we've done, right? We started creating ESN, then we went and created a Startup Grind, then you moved on and you got the chapter of FuckUp Nights, and you created your own company. So let's go back a little bit. And you're cheating because you kind of like know the structure of you know what's coming next, and you know the last question. So you're the first speaker to know the rules of the game. But let's go back a little bit let's start with ESN, because we always speak about business, but we never speak about the importance of volunteering, like how that shaped me and probably you, and how that helped you to become an entrepreneur later in the year. What did you learn there, and what was the things that you learned that would help you in your entrepreneurial career?
Well, I need to say that I know the structure, but I'm nervous anyway. So regarding that, definitely it was super useful for me, like volunteering. And if I'm here today, if I run FuckUp Nights, I do what I do is because of volunteering, because there's where first I learned what was actually to work, and I started discovering what motivated me, which was events. My background is in economics and finance, and by organizing those cultural events, that's how I found out that I really liked putting people together and organizing events.
Because I think that one of the things we learned a lot, right? When we created the association, there was no money. So it was sort of a bootstrap company, because we decided we're not going to spend anything. We're just going to be, collecting some money from the events. People would pay an entrance, would pay a fee, whatever, and then we would start spending stuff like a server hosting for the website, some social media accounts, maybe some T-shirts to identify ourselves as mentors, not just like drunk people like in the parties. But you were in charge of finance, so I guess that your studies helped you there. But do you remember the whole experience of bootstrapping that shit for like 5 years?
Yeah, definitely I do, and it was like such an experience, because first, like, it was my first working experience, and especially in finance, but it helped me a lot on like having a mindset of being able like to make things happen without funding beforehand, because also like we were targeting exchange students, Erasmus from Europe, which means that they don't have money, basically.
They only have money for beer.
Exactly,
yeah.
That's the only thing. So like the prices of the trips, everything was like super adjusted, like super low. So we really needed to find ways to make things happen without investing any money, and to keep prices as low as possible. And that has helped me a lot afterwards in like being able to set up communities, events, like without the need of having a lot of resources at the very beginning.
And in actually, I think it's the closest experience I got to what it feels to be a CEO was when we were volunteers. Because at the beginning of a company, the first year, you do whatever it takes, right? It's like, I got to write a contract. I got to write a contract. I got to print the business cards. I got to do this and that. So like, there's not much work of only sales or managing people because it's only you, most likely, right? So I remember there that we had to do all kind of stuffs, and all of the time with no experience, no credentials, no money, no background, and we're like talking to Estrella Damm for partnerships, negotiating with Ryanair, to big brands. Like, we were business people, and we're just like, literally, we're just students, right? You were more involved in that part of the association. How do you remember the first time you had to negotiate with a big brand, and how it felt like, shit, I'm just a student,
Yeah, but actually, like, I didn't feel that much pressure because probably I was quite unconscious at the time. So I felt much more precious afterwards, like when I was starting my career as a freelance. But at that moment, I was just doing something out of love, just trying to help students, organizing these trips, these things. So I wasn't really uncomfortable, like asking for things to Ryanair or etc., because I didn't feel that responsibility. It was just like offering a platform to reach, and I didn't really feel that way. But that's the power of unconsciousness.
Yeah. I mean, and that's probably the same way I felt, in which, like, you're so naive at the first time you're doing something, especially if you're being a volunteer, that you think there are no limits. Like, limits normally are self-imposed, right? And so we're going to go into this a little bit later, but then you created your first company, AG Events, which we're going to be covering a little bit later. Probably you were like, yeah, I know all that shit. I did already that in ESN, right? Let's fast forward to 2014 when we decided to create Startup Grind. We had been organizing events for 5 years, and yet the first event comes. How did we fuck up in such simple things? Like, I remember we didn't think about the visibility of the speaker, and like the check-in wasn't quite figured out, and we had like quite a lot of trouble. How do you remember that first event?
Well, like, I remember it like...
Probably it was my fault.
It's you who says so. Like, quite exciting. But yeah, in the end, and I'm you know me, and you know that I'm quite focused on details, etc. But as you said, like, I had no real idea of networking, of how to put together a networking event and business event. Didn't really know what we were doing. So yeah, like, things like not doing a proper check, like, days before the event, and testing everything, sound, image, seeing the venue properly in the actual configuration, which are obvious, but we didn't do any of those actually, no? And it was just basically the day over there. But also, no, and at that time, perhaps there was still some unconsciousness, so...
Still there, huh?
At the beginning, so... Overall, like, the impression was good, no? It's like, okay, we've convinced 60 friends to come and join our very first event.
What do you remember, like, what was the most disastrous day at like Startup Grind that probably you have forgotten about? What was like the worst day that you experienced organizing an event for entrepreneurs every month?
One that I remember a lot of is like, actually, nothing bad happened, but you will recall the one with Simon Lee.
Oh, yeah.
Because everything was fine in the end, but the process was terrible, because basically we were super lucky, because as you mentioned, like, we ran, I don't know how many events, like, without interruption. And there were so many things that could go wrong, like, not any single speaker ever canceled or like last minute all the time. And for this event that we were hosting first, like, Movistar Center was closed for some strikes.
They had a strike, yeah.
That they had. So we had to move to Barcelona Activa, which meant like a whole different kind of requirements, logistics, etc. So we had our beers delivered by them to the venue, including the fridge, and for some reason they didn't deliver them until 4 hours before the
No, 'cause
event.
I think they were
got
sent to
them-
the previous event, the previous venue.
Yes, they were sent to the wrong place, so we had to move them ourselves with with a van. I don't know, like 200 beers from Mediatic to Barcelona Activa.
Was it with my dad? That one was with
Yes.
with my dad. I gotta tell you something.
Then there was something else over there, but also like 10 minutes before the event, Simon Lee hadn't shown up, and perhaps in the morning he had sent a warning that he didn't feel that well.
Yeah.
So it was like super stressful. Like, is he gonna show up? Is he not?
The team couldn't come. We had no volunteers. It was like Carlos and I only. And I remember there was like one of the things that before Simon Lee eventually showed up, but I remember like I was sending the roll up and it broke. We had only one roll up and it fucking broke. What else went wrong? I think there was a couple.
Well, no, it wasn't wrong, but that was the event when at the end, like we saw like some of the attendees like leaving with 4 or 5 beers in their pockets.
Because we're not allowed to leave the beers there, so it's like take them home.
at the networking. But the thing is that this one wasn't bad, so it was okay in the end, but it was like quite stressful, and I think that's the worst one I remember. And but on the personal side, the worst one was the one with Mark Ross.
That was our like 5th event?
Yeah, something like that. That I used to do like what Victor was doing now. Amazingly, I used to do that before, like the introduction to the open mic. And I don't like public speaking at all. And I got blank on stage, and I looked like stupid, and I couldn't talk. I really, it was the first time ever that happened to me, and I had to leave, like kind of you had to rescue me from the stage. And that was quite hard, because also after that, I stayed like for, I don't know how many events.
For like a year.
Until the anniversary that I didn't dare to go on stage and speak in public until I did some work and went back to it. But that one also, like from the personal side, it's like the hardest one for me.
After the 5th anniversary, Carlos created his. He had created his company before EE Events. Kind of like, strangely enough, because you've always been partnering with other people. Like at ESN, we're like 5 or 6 co-founders. Startprime, we're 3. You decided to create it alone. Why did you decide to go solo on that one?
That's a good question that I would like to ask Carlos of 2014. It made a lot of sense at the moment. So it was 2014. We had started at the beginning of the year hosting the Startup Grind events. I started to have a network of entrepreneurs. I knew that I didn't like my job in finance, and I had that feeling of doing my own thing. So I said, I've been doing events for 5 years. I have a lot of experience. I'm great. So I'm gonna become an event manager just on my own. I'm gonna go freelance just because I had that experience. Of course, it wasn't a good decision, but it was so obvious. Like, I have a huge network of potential customers. I have experience. So why not doing it? I'm gonna do it. So I dropped my job and get to it.
How did you take the decision of quitting your job? Because it's not obvious. I'm pretty sure like people are still working in the audience are thinking like, I'm gonna quit my job. I'm gonna become a solo founder or entrepreneur or a freelancer even. What was the thought process, and what was the moment where you said like, I'm fed up? Because clearly you said that you didn't start because you had clients. It was like you had the idea, not the clients, right?
Yeah, no, like the way I did it, it's not advisable at all. Because basically it was, as all these big decisions, I think it's a process, no? And I didn't like the company I was working at, like the how they treat people. I had that feeling in me of doing something that I like. I had certain ideas of specific events to do, and I had like a window of opportunity because my contract was finishing, and I was gonna get a new contract as like un contrato indefinido, a permanent contract. So I had that opportunity of saying, okay, I quit, but still I get my unemployment benefits that you could use to start your business. And I say, I'm gonna go for it. And during a trip to Istanbul, I made the decision, and when I came back, I told my boss that I was done when the contract finished.
I do remember the first day that I woke up unemployed because I was starting my own business, and it felt amazing. It felt like so liberating because I felt like everything's possible from now. Like I have no clients, no team, no funding, no experience as a business person, but I've got the dream. Do you remember that day? How was it for you?
Yeah, because actually, like, besides it was almost in the US, because the first thing I did was quitting my job and going to the US because we had the Startup Grind Global Conference in San Francisco. So I spent 15 days in New York doing connections and exploring events over there, and then head to San Francisco. So yeah, definitely I had a lot of plans, ideas of what kind of crazy events to host. It felt quite good, but it wasn't.
What amazing things have you done at EE events because of that unconsciousness you were speaking about? Because you introduced it twice. Maybe there's been more episodes of that, like, talking to freaking Ryanair and Vodafone and all these big brands we were talking to. You're working for some big clients, like 4 years from now, for instance. That's one of your main clients. So what amazing things have you done, or what contracts have you landed that Carlos from 2014 would be, wow, man?
No, definitely, like, working with GSMA and like taking care of the 4YFN conference probably is one of the best of so. But like I would say, like, the wow crazy things are others that I did. Like I started hosting like the Sunrise Brands, which were like these morning parties at 6 a.m. To start the day with good vibes. Which, by the way, I used to host them with one of the founders of Atico at their first venue. So yes, I decided I need to do this. I had learned of this kind of events in New York, and I wanted to do them in Barcelona. So I just went to it and tried to convince people to wake up at 6 a.m. to go to a party.
With no alcohol? Tell the whole story.
With no alcohol.
That's why I never showed up.
And then head to work. And I did everything myself. Like there was breakfast with some help from friends, but basically it was a very nice idea, but the execution was quite poor.
But I know there's at least 3-4 people I recognize from the pictures of that event that they were in that event. And they told me, yeah, I mean, Victor, I think Stella was there, Mark was there, I think Albert was there. So I think like all these people were in your event. So, but one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about is like, being a solo founder is fucking difficult. I don't know it because I haven't done it myself, because I know my limits, right? And I know that I'm never going to accomplish anything on my own. I always need the support of other amazing people. And that's why I try to surround me with people that are way more intelligent and capable than myself. And one of the things that your business in particular requires a lot of operations and sales. So you got to do the two things that are kind of like excluding one to another. So how do you balance that? How do you find the balance between sales and operations?
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terribly.
Great. Next question.
Because I mean, basically it's my biggest pain. It was, and it is still. Because basically the result of this, like becoming a freelance, was 2 years of 40 something euros of revenue. Was the whole revenue I generated in 2 years, because I wasn't focused on that. And you know that I hate selling. I don't know how to do that. I've gotten better, but I struggle in having conversations about money and fees. It's still a thing to me that doesn't come naturally. I'm okay at operations and making things happen, but definitely not with sales and communication, because you need to do like a lot of communications, and also that's one of my weak points, and that I don't enjoy doing. So it's been quite a learning process on that matter, and combining both. But the worst struggle of being a solo founder is like it's really hard, and I don't think it's the right choice. It's makes things much harder because you have no one like to share your shit or like to push you or and to get you ahead. So definitely it's not, in my opinion, it's not the best plan, and for me it was quite hard, and it's really hard to get going, just finding the motivation in you so that you can get your brilliant ideas and your big plans actually moving forward, because there's no external external deadlines, external like someone that forces you. It's just it just depends on you, and it's not easy to keep like the emotional balance to at the low moments like go ahead and be able like to deliver what you are supposed to do, or to do it the right way.
I was going to go into that. How do you find motivation being a solo founder, and how do you deal with the tough moments of being, not selling enough, or this project didn't go well, or I'm feeling down for whatever reason? How did you overcome these situations? Who did you talk to? Or
I mean, it took me really a long time, and because I really struggled at the beginning, and I hit a lot of times. Like I had, and I talked about that at not this FuckUp Nights, the previous one. I shared that story. It was like a personal challenge that what used to happen to me a lot of times, that I used to engage into a lot of collaborations, that magic word of the startup ecosystem. Let's collaborate. Let's do something together. Yeah. So I said yes, and I got into a lot of things that at some point I didn't feel comfortable in doing. So I have several cases where like I didn't know how to go ahead, and I just hit and like not reply and like let opportunities go, and it was quite a hard process, like to learn like to say no before and after, in order to be able to deliver, and to go ahead, because if not, like you get trapped into these toxic projects and that are not delivering you any value, but also are keeping you from other things where you can find that.
There's an opportunity cost, of course. And I know that like I really admire the way you pulled this off. I mean, it took years, but after having worked and collaborated with you for so many years, I knew Carlos is going to pull it off. But I know that you have learned a lot throughout the way, because you pioneered and you tested some kind of events like Sunrise Brands that maybe worked, maybe they didn't work. You changed the name of the company because it was too complicated for people to remember. You changed the logo, and there were other learnings that you might want to share here. What was the most expensive learning you've had with the events?
The most expensive learning. Well, probably it's like the learning how to sell, because as I mentioned, it's like I literally spent like 2 years with zero revenue. So I think that's quite expensive. Like just like being 2 years just engaging into collaborations and focusing of revenue is not important. The important thing is to do what you like.
It's my passion.
Is what you like.
You don't need our passion, man.
You build a network and you'll find a way to monetize it. And probably like learning that, yeah, it doesn't need to be like my main drive, and I don't want it to be, but revenue matters and you need to eat.
It's relevant. How did you learn how to sell? Because how did you get your first paid clients? Because free clients, I think we can agree that we can get all free clients, right? But like paid clients, and maybe like with a just price.
Okay.
Not like super discounted, whatever. Like the first client that you'd say like, wow, this was a good sell.
Because the very first one was is another fuck up story. Is Dinello.
Go on.
We did a collaboration of like organizing some events for a platform that generated cashback for the users. So it was the first customer that actually was willing to pay, and we hosted a party, and it went great. That's where I got my 45 euros
You said 42.
revenue. Okay, more
Another
or less.
45.
For the video, it's better 45. Yeah. And then, okay, I said, okay, from here, we'll build a relationship. 2 months after, they closed. So that was my very first client. But getting to your question, the first one properly paying and was Harbor Space University, which I actually got thanks to Startup Grind, because they were a sponsor, and at some point they were looking for someone to take care of an event that they were hosting, and I was there to help.
And you managed to charge them, and they're still around, so they didn't shut down. They're still operating, so it's not like you engage with a company that they shut down. Another thing that I wanted to cover in this conversation is, you've got a great track record of doing something that most people are not willing to admit. Most people think our ideas are the best. I'm going to start a new event with this new brand. I'm going to create this conference with this brand. And you and I shared ESN. It was not our brand. We took it from somebody else. We deployed it, because there was a franchise. We took the franchise of Startup Grind. Then now you've taken the franchise of FuckUp Nights. So what would you advise people to do would you tell people like, don't follow your own ideas because they're probably not gonna work? Or is it better to lean on existing brands because they've got shit figured out?
So I think that actually, like, the advice or what it's worked for me in both cases. So first is like, consider doing something that is not your genuine idea. So if it's a franchise, something, it's an option and it's possible to do business with that, or to get something out of it. But in general, is, I would say, collaboration. Because like generally when we start something, we start thinking like of covering every single thing ourselves. And one of the things that I think that we got right at the very beginning with ESN and with the Startup Grind, but it was kind of unconscious, was like collaborating with other existing things. And I remember a lot one moment that we had at the beginning of Startup Grind was where we were analyzing the other events happening in Barcelona, and one of them was Barcelona Loves Entrepreneurs, and at the beginning we were, they are competition, how are we gonna beat them? And then somehow we got to the point, no, let's talk to them. Let's ask for a meeting and see how can we collaborate, coordinate on dates so that we don't step on each other, do cross promotion, and this like adding up instead of competing is, I think it works. And also it applies like to the promotion strategy. Like both for Startup Grind, we were leaning a lot on communities that already had their audiences. Like we had that huge list of 30 communities where we, or newsletters, where we send our events. So leaning on those things and then trying like to get your own communication channels and do it all yourself, like talking to people that you can have synergies with.
But well, you made the partnership with Ble, and all of a sudden they stopped existing. I'm seeing a pattern here. No, just kidding. I didn't remember these. It was a good example. But like, for instance, I was we ran also in Barcelona. We ran Startup Digest. You know, you probably received the newsletter of Startup Digest, which is every week. We send all the events happening in the city. It's another existing brand by Techstars. You know, and so a lot of people are like, I'm gonna create my own newsletter. It's like, why do you have to figure out and start something from scratch when there's somebody who has laid the groundwork, has figured out the business model, the branding, the platform, the partnerships, the distribution channels, and whatnot, and is giving it to you for free or for a really small fee? So it's worth investing, right? I mean, as a matter of fact, like for instance, Startup Grind, we pay 20% of our revenues to them to participate in this. So we like literally, we don't get money from Startup Grind from Google. Like we pay to belong to this, but the revenues and everything else that we get out of it, like compensates greatly what we do, right? How did you come about FuckUp Nights? Because it had been run by other people, and it was dormant for a while, maybe. And you
Andrea had been running it like for 3 or 4 years before, and the event was great. And at some point, I found out that it was dormant, as you said, and I said, okay, I'm gonna do that. And the reason a little bit was because at that point, how to say that? I was a little bit, there is a side of startup events or classic startup events that I got a little bit tired of, which is like, most of the events is just like about showing the shiny things and like, hey, yes, I did this, I learned that, and now look at my Ferrari and everything is great, and let's build the next $1 billion company. And it's great because you create a mindset of innovation and you encourage people to become entrepreneurs. But at the same time, it doesn't let people be themselves. It pushes a lot like on the things like imposter syndrome, like I need to fake it until I make it. I need to seem great. And sometimes I just want to grab a beer with someone and just say, hey, how are you? How was your day? It was a shit. I just lost a customer. And it's hard to find that. So it was a way I thought that of offering that to the community of Barcelona. And what I intend to do is like to create through FuckUp Nights that space where there's a little bit more of a relaxed environment, and try to get people going in a different way without that pressure that a lot of times is the in my opinion the wrong side of the coin, of the Silicon Valley model. That is like, go big, fail fast, blah, blah, blah. So that's a little bit the reason behind it.
That's pretty deep, and it definitely hits close to home, because whenever, like, I remember we went to the very first FuckUp Nights in Barcelona, and over the years I had been going because it truly feels like I'm meeting like normal people. Like, 'cause even like sometimes at Startup Grind, we're just showcasing people who have been successful, right? Because at the end of the day, we got to sell tickets and whatnot, and it comes from Silicon Valley. But I really don't want to perpetuate the idea that, everybody made it big, because we have survivorship bias and we only see like really famous people, really multimillionaires who've made it big. And therefore we're creating false expectations for the people, right? And when you go to the FuckUp Nights, it's kind of like, well, these are my people, And it's like, I could be that person. I very rarely go to Startup Grind event, for instance, or any other event for that matter, and think, I could be that person. It's like, no, that's not going to happen, right? Now, FuckUp Nights is like literally, yeah, I've done that too, you know. And when I see the stories, except for the story that Victor shared at FuckUp Night because he made like something amazing, but it's like, well, okay, not that one, but I could have done the rest of the fuck-ups in the world. And so transitioning from Startup Grind to FuckUp Nights, what did you learn from one that you could apply to the other? And especially, I want to get your ideas on this. The frequency of doing events month after month with a certain regularity, how has that helped you to become a better entrepreneur, if it has?
I mean, it hasn't because I failed on that.
Okay.
But I have very clear, and that's one of the main learnings, no? It's like whatever your regularity is, whatever you want to do, be consistent, and no matter what, like, keep it. So at the very beginning, when we started the Startup Grind, it was basically like probably 60% of the audience was friends that were coming to get moons.
And family, yeah.
to get the empanadas. But we kept going and like go ahead, and some events like the first one at the Movistar Center, like with Miquel Puig, wasn't a huge success in sales, but still we kept going, and in the end, you get to a point where it gets easier. And I have a very clear example, and I have experienced like the problems of not doing that with FuckUp Nights, because at the very beginning I ran like 6 events in a row with no interruptions on a monthly basis, 3 speakers, and it was great. I mean, by the 4th event, everything was smooth, getting speakers was so easy, selling out the event too was really easy. But then I got into my first year doing a project for 4 years from now, so I didn't have the time. So I did a break of 3 months. After that, it was super hard to go back to inertia for me, like to again, like reach out the speakers, do the curation, and get the word out. It was like the effort was, I don't know, like double than the 4th event in a row from the previous one. And that's something that I've learned, and a lot from you, is like, if you persevere and you stay there, things will go okay. Eventually, you'll figure it out.
You have a great taste for content curation, especially when it comes to speakers, you know. When we were doing the events at Startup Grind, you came always with amazing suggestions. And then, of course, when you go to FuckUp Nights and then working for 4 years from now, it's like, well, you got to select and cherry pick top-notch speakers. What is your process of selecting speakers for both FuckUp Nights and 4 years from now? Because probably they're not the same, but...
Yeah. So for me, and that's something that I learned in like the first time that I was really involved in content, because at Startup Grind, I was providing ideas, but I was more on the logistical side. But was like 4 years from now, 2020, and I was very lucky to work with someone that...
Great year, yeah.
Yes. It was an amazing edition of 4 years from now, 2020. It didn't happen because of the pandemic. So I had the chance to work with Jose Luis de Vicente, that is the head curator of Sonar Plus D, that it's his work, his life, it's curating exhibitions, conferences, and I didn't know who he was before working with him, but basically he enlightened me a lot and inspired me a lot, and basically showed me like the responsibility that you have when you are choosing someone to get on stage. You are a bit irresponsible, Alex, I need to say. You got
I'm
me
sorry,
here.
people. I'm sorry.
But especially into a big event such as 4 years from now, or etc. So, and it made me a click. So basically what I do, the process that I follow is like, first I think of topics that are relevant to the people. So I try to think in terms of topics, of subjects, instead of people, and then finding the right speakers to talk about that. that's something that I do. The other thing, of course, is like also sometimes I work based on specific people that I know how they think, what they talk about, and then I target someone specific. But I try to focus a lot on these themes that can provide a different view or can be thought-provoking and not just like following the mainstream and what you are supposed to do.
But you've got a secret sauce for selecting kind of like selecting the speakers. And I know you got something special there that when you told me, it was like, we got to share that.
Yeah. And it came out like, I don't know, like it was, I guess it's survival, no? That sometimes it's when you get the best ideas. Because at an event like 4 years from now, you got a lot of speaking requests and suggestions and partners, and there's a lot of opportunities to get people on stage. So especially this year, I was having like a huge volume of candidates, and I found that, and I came to me that, and what I do is like, I find a speech of the speakers on YouTube, and I play it, but I continue working. So if somehow they draw my attention while I'm working, then it means it's a yes.
That's a really
if not,
good one.
Then I let it go.
Because normally, I mean, we receive a lot of speaker requests from people, and normally that's, at StartBrind, that's a red flag. Like if somebody suggests himself or herself to speak at an event, it's usually not gonna make it, right? And so my next question, and we're gonna be doing a throwback here because there's a question I had to dust it off. We haven't been using it for years, but I knew you will appreciate. What's the most amazing thing you've done with Microsoft Excel? You came to the first events of StartBrind. Every event for the first year, we're asking about Microsoft Excel.
I mean, I could tell you what I haven't done because I love Excel.
You live on Excel.
Yes, I could do everything.
What are your superpowers on Excel?
On a spreadsheet, but I don't know. Like, well, probably the most amazing thing was how I learned doing and to keep on learning was. It's super geek, but basically I created like a fully automated spreadsheet for like some PlayStation tournaments in FIFA that we did with with my friends, and we were always saying we need to keep stats and like who scored more goals. So I created just a whole spreadsheet and learned a bunch of formulas that in order to keep track of the stats, so that you just recorded the scorer, and then you got back the result, the points, and the whole point, the whole general view of that. But thanks to that, that was the base of our event management system for Startup Grind.
We're still using it.
And for many things I do, it's based on that. I
didn't know.
Big thing.
So to give context, in the very first event, you can check the video there. We interviewed Mark Vicente, and I used to ask like really shit questions, kind of like what I've been doing tonight, but in a worse way, right? And I remember one of the questions was like, "What app couldn't you live without?" So questions like that. Was my first event, and he said like Microsoft Excel. Literally, I do everything, like my shopping, like my groceries list and everything. If I could do PowerPoint presentations in Excel, I would do it. And then we said like, wow, that was good. Let's ask it in every event. What can you do in Microsoft Excel? For like a year and a half, we were asking that, and then it suddenly disappeared. I don't know why. Anyways, last question, and you know it. Signature question. We're going to be opening the floor for questions, ladies and gentlemen. But what is your useless superpower?
So my useless superpower is forgetting my useless superpower. Because like I was at 40-something events, 60 events, and a lot of times I've come, look, if I ever got that question asked, that will be my answer. But I'm not able, at some point I got it, and I'm not able to remember it anymore. However, one of the real one, I cannot tell you, but one of an example is, if I'm in a room and there are like 3 or 4 people speaking at the same time and I'm one of them, my voice is the one that is ignored. That's my that's my useless superpower.
That's a very good useless superpower. So, wow. Normally people don't, they don't expect this question or whatever. But it's funny that every time we meet, Carlos comes to me, is like, I had the useless superpower and I've forgotten again. And we met last week for dinner, for lunch, and I was like, I have one. Oh shit, I've just forgotten. It's like, dude, you gotta be kidding me. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Carlos. It was amazing. It's going to be room for questions, so maybe Mark want to help us out with there's another mic over there. There's a mic, this one, Victor. Is it working? Yes. Okay, so please be considerate of other people's time. Just say your name and just one question per person, and please don't put your math down. Yeah.
You can ask about fuck-ups. I have plenty of them.
Yeah, I have the feeling that we have just barely scratched the surface of everything you do, but kind of like now you've got the interest, ask for specific things of specific chapters.
I'm Dasha, and I have a question about pandemic, how you survived with the events during pandemic, because I've been running some events with my with my ex-employer, and at first it was blasting, of course, because people were starving. But then we fucked up, basically, with the audience.
So yeah, that's a very good point, because one of my problems, and at the beginning it didn't come out on the conversation, but was that I didn't have focus, and I was doing hundreds of different things at every single time. And still something else that I still do is I still have provide some financial services to companies, so in order to have some basic financial analysis so that they can know where their money is going and coming from. So that basically was my lifesaver, and at that time I said, yes, you see, it pays off, because that way I could survive, because during the pandemic, the 4 years from now event got canceled in February, and after that I didn't get any third-party events. So that, luckily, not following the advice that I had been giving through Startup Grind a lot of times saved me and allowed me to keep getting revenue.
I think I found your useless superpower, Carlos. It just dawned on me right now. I had an epiphany. You always get the worst joke in the room. If we're doing jokes, he gets the worst one.
Go for it. It's like blushing. Ponerme rojo at any situation. I can do that. Yes, so
you're
easily.
blushing right now.
That's the one, exactly. I'm starting to do it slightly. That's the one. Now I got it.
Blushing, yeah, that's a really
I have
easy.
it on record.
But I thought it was going to be because, I got really bad humor, jokes and shit. But Carlos outperforms me every time. So I thought the title of this presentation is actually Entrepreneurship is Fun, because that's the acronym of FuckUp Nights. So I thought that's the kind of joke that Carlos would do all the time. So it gets worse than that jokes. Any other question before we fuck off to the beers and food? No pressure. We all want the beers, right? And the food? No last question? Alex, please. Of course, you've come to 75 events. You had one question for him.
I'm Alex. What were you doing in Istanbul when you quit your job?
Just traveling. I had been meaning to visit Istanbul for a while, and I went alone over there, and just a lot of thinking, and it's when I said, I need to do it. I go ahead, and I did. It was just it's a special trip, and actually from there comes my terrible name of my business, which still it's bad, but now it's okay-ish with IYI events, but at the beginning it was İyiyim, which is Turkish for I'm fine. And there it's only made with 3 letters, in events. Of course, yes.
We have one question there.
I've got a question for you, Carlos. Hi, my name is Nazia. From all of the fuck-ups that you heard in the FuckUp Nights, what is your favorite fuck-up?
Good question.
Good question. So the last week we had one that was really, really to the point. I mean, it was like super. The cultural thing matters, and it was someone from Russia. So like it was like super structured, super honest, super like the points were very clear of failure, and it was really powerful in that sense, and very like the classical story of a startup that fails, and he was really telling that story, and that was one of my favorite ones.
So last question from my side, and then we wrap it up, is, what can we expect from EE events, FuckUp Nights, 4 years from now, and this year, and how can we help you from Startbrain?
Yeah, so, well, 4 years from now, it's looking great. Like, the event is taking place at the end of February, starting on Monday, February 28th. And everything goes surprisingly well. I was speaking with the event director yesterday and like saying, okay, like this is really going smooth, no? It's like everything seems about Omicron, but in terms of the event, like everything is going great. And if you want to know more, on Friday at 1 p.m., there's a LinkedIn Live preview where we will showcase some of the highlights of the event, speakers, networking opportunities, etc. And regarding FuckUp Nights, we have some interesting announcements to do in the following months. We will be back here on March 22nd, I believe. And of course, you can help me if you know someone, or by any chance you have ever fucked up. Reach out to me, reach out to Hannah or Carly, that will be around on the networking too, and let's talk, because in FuckUp Nights we share all kind of stories of failure, and we're always in look for speakers and stories that we can all learn from.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Carlos Cruz, the mighty. All right. So you get like 1 hour of networking. It's going to be in the rooftop, right? If I got it correctly. Yeah. Okay. So there's beers here. Beers are going to be served as well upstairs. Instructions are like, please don't accumulate here, because we're going to I know everybody wants to talk to Carlos. We're gonna. I was gonna say I'm gonna unmic him, but he's already done that. We're gonna be coming upstairs in 5 minutes. So you walk out of here to the left. There's a staircase. Walk outside. It's like gorgeous, lovely weather, especially if you come from Russia or the UK. It's going to be fantastic summer weather. For us, you want to take your jackets, everything, because we're going to be closing this part. There's going to be food and there's going to be beers there. Thank you very much for coming.